The cursed phone number that took control of my life. Welcome to Ghastly Guide YouTube channel. Listen carefully to what I'm about to tell you, because I need someone to know what happened to me. Someone needs to understand why I'm sitting here in this empty diner at 3 a.m, my hands shaking as I speak into this recorder, glancing over my shoulder every few seconds at shadows that shouldn't move but do. It started 6 months ago with a phone call I should never have answered. I was working late in my apartment in downtown Portland, the kind of cramped studio that smells perpetually of old coffee and regret. The rain hammered against my single window like skeletal fingers, and the fluorescent light above my desk flickered with that nauseating strobe that makes everything look like a crime scene photograph. I was a freelance data analyst then, emphasis on was, and I'd been hunched over my laptop for 12 straight hours, trying to meet a deadline that would barely cover my rent. When my phone rang at 11:47 p.m., I almost ignored it. Unknown number. But something about the timing, the insistence of the ring cutting through the storm's white noise, made me reach for it without thinking. "Hello," I said, my voice hoarse from hours of silence. Silence. Not the empty silence of a dropped call, but the thick, expectant silence of someone listening. I could hear breathing, shallow, measured, like someone trying very hard to stay calm. "Hello," I repeated. "Is someone there?" Then a voice, soft, feminine, terrified. "Please," she whispered. "Please, you have to help me. They're coming back. They always come back when it gets dark, and I can hear them in the walls. I can hear them scratching." My blood went cold. "Who is this? Are you in danger? Do you need me to call the police?" "No." The desperation in her voice was raw, primal. "No police. They can't see them. No one can see them but me. But you answered. That means you're connected now." "Oh, God, what have I done?" "Connected to what?" "Listen, calm down. Tell me where you are." "The old Blackmore Hospital," she sobbed. "Room 237. But don't come here. Whatever you do, don't come here. I thought I could break the chain, but I just made it longer. I'm so sorry. I'm so fucking sorry." The line went dead. I stared at my phone, my heart hammering against my ribs like a caged bird. Blackmore Hospital. I knew that name. Everyone in Portland knew that name, even though most tried to forget it. The psychiatric facility had been abandoned for 15 years after a series of unexplained patient deaths and staff disappearances. It sat on the outskirts of the city like a monument to human suffering, its broken windows staring blindly over the Columbia River. I told myself it was a prank, some kid with too much time and a sick sense of humor. But as I sat there in my flickering apartment, listening to the rain claw at my window, I couldn't shake the image of a terrified woman alone in that dead place. The smart thing would have been to forget about it. Go to bed. Let someone else deal with whatever tragedy was unfolding in the ruins of Blackmore Hospital. Instead, I grabbed my keys. The drive through the storm-lashed streets felt like descending into hell. My windshield wipers fought a losing battle against the rain, and every flash of lightning illuminated the city in stark, unforgiving detail. Empty streets, shuttered businesses, the occasional homeless figure huddled in doorways like urban gargoyles. The GPS on my phone kept losing signal, the blue that represented my location flickering in and out of existence, as if the device itself was uncertain about where I was going. Blackmore Hospital emerged from the darkness like a fever dream. 7 stories of red brick and shattered hope, its Gothic architecture twisted into something obscene by decades of neglect. Ivy crawled up its walls like green veins, and several windows on the upper floors were boarded up with rotting plywood. The main entrance was chained shut, but I could see gaps in the fence where other urban explorers had cut their way through. I parked across the street and sat there for 20 minutes, engine running, trying to convince myself to turn around. The rain drummed on my roof like applause for a performance I didn't want to give. My phone showed no signal bars, just a blank gray void where the carrier information should have been. Then I saw the light. 4th floor, 3rd window from the left. A weak, flickering glow that pulsed like a dying heartbeat. Room 237 would be on the 2nd floor, but that light drew my eyes like a beacon. As I watched, a shadow passed in front of it, human-shaped, but wrong somehow, moving with a jerky, disjointed gait that made my stomach clench. I should have driven away. Christ, I should have driven straight to the nearest police station and reported what I'd seen. Instead, I turned off the engine, pulled up my hood, and stepped into the storm. The hole in the fence was barely wide enough for me to squeeze through, and the rusty metal edges caught at my jacket like desperate fingers. The hospital grounds were a wasteland of cracked concrete and dead vegetation, littered with broken glass and the occasional syringe. My flashlight beam danced across graffiti-covered walls and boarded-up doors, finally settling on a service entrance that hung open like a mouth frozen mid-scream. The smell hit me the moment I stepped inside. Decay, mold, and something else. Something organic and wrong that made my eyes water. The corridor stretched ahead into absolute darkness, my flashlight beam seeming to bend and weaken as if the building itself was absorbing the light. My footsteps echoed off the walls with a hollow, metallic ring. Water dripped somewhere in the distance, a steady percussion that reminded me of a ticking clock. Room numbers were still visible on some of the doors. 201, 203, 205. I was looking for 237. That's when I heard the scratching. It came from inside the walls, just as the woman on the phone had described. A soft, persistent sound like fingernails dragging across wood. It followed me as I moved down the corridor, always just behind me, always just out of sight. When I stopped, it stopped. When I moved, it moved. I found room 237 at the end of the hall. The door was ajar, and pale light spilled through the gap. Not electric light, something else. Something that made the shadows dance in ways that violated every law of physics I thought I understood. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. The room was empty, not just vacant, but empty in a way that suggested it had been empty for a very long time. Dust covered everything like snow, and the single window was so grimy it looked painted black. But on the bed, impossibly clean and new, sat a cell phone. My cell phone. The same model. The same cracked screen protector. Even the same stupid unicorn sticker my niece had put on the back. But that was impossible. My phone was in my pocket. I could feel its weight against my leg. I pulled out my phone to compare them. The screens lit up simultaneously, showing the same time, the same battery percentage, the same missed call notification. From myself. The scratching in the walls grew louder, more insistent. And somewhere in the hospital, echoing through the empty corridors, I heard the sound of a phone ringing. I ran. I'm not ashamed to admit it. I grabbed the phone from the bed, though I still can't explain why, and I ran through those hellish corridors like the building itself was collapsing behind me. The scratching sound followed me, spreading to the walls like an infection, and I swear I could hear voices whisper my name from inside the ductwork. I didn't stop running until I reached my car, and even then my hands were shaking so badly it took 3 tries to get the key in the ignition. As I pulled away from Blackmore Hospital, I caught a glimpse of my rear-view mirror of that light on the 4th floor, still flickering like a dying star. The duplicate phone sat silent in my passenger seat, its black screen reflecting the streetlights like a dark mirror. Every rational part of my mind screamed that this was impossible, that there had to be an explanation. Maybe the woman on the phone was playing an elaborate prank. Maybe she'd somehow gotten hold of my personal information and bought an identical device. Maybe I was having some kind of breakdown brought on by stress and too many sleepless nights. Maybe, but deep down, in the part of my brain that still remembered what it felt like to believe in monsters on the bed, I knew better. When I got home, I tried to charge both phones. Only mine responded. The duplicate remained dead, its screen black and cold no matter what I did. I tried removing the battery, but it was sealed shut. I tried connecting it to my laptop, but my computer couldn't detect it. According to every diagnostic tool I could think of, the second phone didn't exist. But I could touch it. I could feel its weight, its smooth plastic surface, the slight warmth it retained even without power. It was real in every way that mattered, even if reality seemed to have developed some serious glitches. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat at my kitchen table, both phones in front of me, waiting for what I couldn't say. But the silence felt pregnant with possibility, like the moment before lightning strikes. At exactly 3:33 a.m., the dead phone rang. The sound was impossible, a shrill, electronic wail that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. My living phone remained silent, but the duplicate screen blazed alive, showing an incoming call from a number I recognized. My own number. I stared at the ringing phone, paralyzed by the impossibility of it. The caller ID showed my name, my contact photo, the stupid selfie I'd taken at my cousin's wedding last year. But I wasn't calling myself. I was sitting right here, watching my phone call itself. The ringing stopped. A voicemail notification appeared on the dead phone screen. With trembling fingers, I pressed play. My voice filled the apartment, but wrong, distorted, like a recording played at the wrong speed. You shouldn't have come to the hospital. You shouldn't have taken the phone. Now you're part of the chain, and the chain can never be broken. Only passed on. Find someone else. Make them answer. Or join us in the walls. The message ended with a sound of scratching, that same horrible sound I'd heard in Blackmore Hospital. I threw the phone across the room. It hit the wall and clattered to the floor, but the screen remained lit, waiting, always waiting. Over the next 3 days, I tried everything I could think of. I took the phone to repair shops, but the technicians insisted they couldn't see anything wrong with it. Couldn't see it at all, actually. When I placed it on their counters, they looked right through it as if it wasn't there. I tried smashing it with a hammer, but the blows passed through it like it was made of smoke. I drove to the river and threw it in, but when I got home, it was sitting on my kitchen table, dry and pristine. And every night at 3:33 a.m., it rang. The voicemails grew progressively more disturbing. The scratching is getting louder. They're almost through the wall now. I can see them in the mirrors. They look like me, but wrong. All wrong. The chain has to continue. It's the only way to keep them contained. You have to understand. By the fourth night, I was barely functional. I called in sick to work, stopped eating, stopped showering. I sat in my apartment with all the lights on, staring at that cursed device and waiting for 3:33 to arrive like a death sentence. When the phone rang, I answered it. What do you want from me? I screamed into the receiver. Silence. Then my own voice, but not my voice. You know what we want. You've known since the moment you picked up the phone in the hospital. The chain must continue, or we all become part of the walls. Forever scratching. Forever trying to claw our way out. I don't understand. Every person who answers the cursed number becomes a link in the chain. We try to break it once, try to destroy the phone, try to ignore it. But the things in the walls, they don't like that. They make you join them instead. The only way to stay free is to pass it on, to make someone else answer. That's sick. I won't do that to another person. Then you'll join us, and the scratching will get louder, and more people will answer when their phones ring in the dead of night. The chain will grow longer, and the things in the walls will grow stronger. Is that what you want? I hung up, but my hands were already reaching for my real phone. The logic was horrible but undeniable. If I didn't pass this curse along, something worse would happen. The woman at the hospital had tried to warn me, but in doing so, she'd made me part of whatever sick game this was. I scrolled through my contacts, looking for anyone I could call. But how do you choose who gets damned? How do you decide whose life gets destroyed by something that shouldn't exist? Then I saw it. A number I'd forgotten I had. My ex-boyfriend Marcus. The same Marcus who'd cheated on me with my best friend. Who'd stolen money from my purse and lied about it. Who'd made the last year of our relationship a living hell before disappearing with half my belongings. My finger hovered over his number. This was wrong. This was evil. But the scratching sound was getting louder, and I could swear I saw a movement in my peripheral vision. Shadow figures that vanished when I looked directly at them. I dialed Marcus's number. He answered on the third ring, groggy and annoyed. Jesus, what time is it? This better be important. Marcus, I said, and my voice sounded strange in my own ears, hollow and distant. I need to tell you something. About a hospital. About a phone number that should never be answered. What are you talking about? Are you drunk? Listen to me very carefully. I continued, and I realized I was crying. Whatever you do, Don't go to Blackmore Hospital. Don't answer if a strange number calls you. And don't trust a voice on the other end, even if it sounds like someone you know. You're scaring me, he said, and for a moment, his voice sounded small and vulnerable, the way it used to when we first met. I'm sorry, I whispered. I'm so fucking sorry. I hung up and immediately dialed his number again. This time, when he answered, I disguised my voice, made it higher, more desperate. Please, you have to help me. I'm trapped in the old Blackmore Hospital, and they're coming for me. Room 237. Please, I need someone to help me. There was a long pause. Then, who is this? How did you get this number? Please, I begged, hating myself with every word. I'm so scared. I think they're going to kill me. I'm calling the police. No, they can't help. Please, just come. Room 237. Please. The line went dead. I sat there in my apartment, surrounded by the ghosts of my former life, and waited. The duplicate phone had gone silent. It screened dark once again, but I knew this wasn't over. The chain continued, and somewhere in the city, Marcus was getting dressed, grabbing his keys, driving through the rain toward a hospital that should have been demolished years ago. I'd saved myself by damning someone else. And deep down, I knew that no matter how much I tried to justify it, no matter how much Marcus had hurt me, I'd just become something monstrous. The scratching in the walls had stopped, but the silence was somehow worse. ________________________________________________________________________________________________________3 3 weeks passed before I heard from Marcus again. 3 weeks of relative normalcy where I almost convinced myself the nightmare was over. I returned to work, started eating regular meals, even went on a date with a guy from my yoga class. The duplicate phone sat in my junk drawer, silent and seemingly inert, like a bomb with a very long fuse. I should have known better. The first sign that something was wrong came through social media. Marcus had posted a series of increasingly erratic status updates, each one more unhinged than the last. Day 3. Can't shake the feeling that someone's watching me. Probably just paranoid after that weird call. Day 7. Found a phone in my apartment that I don't remember buying. Same model as mine. Weird coincidence. Day 12. The scratching started again last night. I thought I fixed that mouse problem. Day 18. They're in the walls. I can hear them moving. Why won't anyone believe me? Day 21. The phone rang at 3:33 a.m. I answered it. Oh, God, I answered it. That last post was followed by radio silence. Marcus's friends started commenting, asking if he was okay, if he needed help. His sister drove down from Seattle to check on him, but his apartment was empty. No signs of struggle, no note, nothing missing except Marcus himself. And that's when my phone started ringing. Not the cursed phone that remained dead in my drawer. My regular phone, the one I'd used to call Marcus, began receiving calls at all hours. The caller ID always showed different numbers, different names, but the voices were all the same. Marcus's voice, but wrong, distorted, echoing as if he were calling from the bottom of a well. You did this to me, he would whisper through the static. You knew what would happen, and you did it anyway. I'm sorry, I would say, but he was always gone before I could finish the words. The calls escalated. Soon it wasn't just Marcus's voice, but others. The woman from the hospital, her terror replaced by cold accusation. A man I didn't recognize, speaking in a language that sounded almost familiar, but not quite right. A child, sobbing that she wanted to go home but couldn't find her way out of the walls. I tried changing my number, but it didn't matter. They found me anyway. I tried turning off my phone, but they called the landline I hadn't used in years. I disconnected that too, but then they started calling my work number, my mother's phone, even the pizza place down the street, asking for me by name. The chain was growing, and I was at the center of it all. Sleep became impossible. Every time I closed my eyes, I could hear the scratching, faint but persistent, coming from inside my apartment walls. During the day, I caught glimpses of movement in my peripheral vision. Shadows that shouldn't exist, figures standing just outside my field of view. When I looked directly at them, they vanished, but the feeling of being watched never went away. I started researching Blackmore Hospital obsessively, digging through old newspaper archives and medical records, try to understand what I'd gotten involved in. What I found made my blood run cold. The hospital hadn't closed because of patient deaths and staff disappearances. It had closed because of something much worse. According to buried reports I found in obscure academic journals, Blackmore had been the site of experimental treatments in the 1970s and 80s. Not medical treatments. Psychological warfare experiments, funded by shadowy government agencies, designed to test the limits of human consciousness. They'd been trying to create a way to trap human souls, to bind consciousness to specific locations or objects. The idea was to develop weapons that could imprison enemy minds, leaving their bodies as empty shells. The experiments had been wildly successful, but not in the way the researchers had hoped. Instead of trapping enemy consciousness, they'd created a kind of psychic infection, a chain of connected minds that spread through technology, through phones and radios and any device capable of transmitting sound. The trapped souls couldn't move on, couldn't die, couldn't escape. They could only spread the infection, adding new links to an ever-growing chain of the damned. The government had tried to contain it. But you can't contain something that spreads through communication itself. The best they could do was shut down the hospital and hope the infection would fade without new victims. They were wrong. The infection had been dormant, waiting in the abandoned walls of Blackmore Hospital like a virus in permafrost. Every few years, someone would stumble across it. Urban explorers, homeless people seeking shelter, thrill seekers looking for ghosts. Most were smart enough to run when they encountered the impossibility of it. But occasionally, someone would answer the phone. Someone would become a new link in the chain. And now, thanks to me, the chain was growing faster than ever. I tried to warn people. I posted on social media, sent emails, even called local news stations. But who believes a story about a cursed phone number? Most people thought I was having a mental breakdown. The few who took me seriously either disappeared entirely or began receiving their own mysterious phone calls. The infection was spreading through Portland's communication networks like wildfire, and I was patient zero. By the end of the month, the first news reports started appearing. Missing persons cases that all followed the same pattern. Someone would receive a strange phone call, become obsessed with Blackmore Hospital, and then vanish without a trace. Their phones would be found at the hospital, arranged in neat rows in room 237, still warm to the touch despite having no battery power. The authorities tried to contain it by sealing the hospital, but it was too late. The infection had spread beyond the building itself, propagating through the city's phone networks like a digital plague. Anyone who answered the wrong call at the wrong time could become a new vector, a new way for the chain to spread. And at the center of it all, I sat in my apartment, watching the city slowly go mad. The duplicate phone in my drawer had started glowing with that same pale light I'd seen in the hospital window. Not constantly, but in pulses that corresponded to my heartbeat, as if the device was somehow synchronized with my life force. I knew I was running out of time. The scratching in the walls was getting louder, more insistent. Sometimes I caught myself responding to it, tapping back in the same rhythm, as if I were having a conversation with whatever lived inside the building's bones. The worst part was the dreams. Every night, I found myself standing in room 237, surrounded by dozens of phones, all ringing at once. In the dream, I could see the other victims, Marcus, the woman who'd first called me, strangers whose faces I didn't recognize but whose eyes held the same desperate terror I saw in my mirror every morning. They were all reaching toward me, mouths open in silent screams, trying to tell me something important. But no matter how hard I concentrated, I couldn't make out the words. There was only the ringing of phones and the scratching the walls, growing louder and louder until I woke up screaming. Last night, the dream changed. Instead of reaching toward me, the victims turned away, walking toward the walls of room 237. As I watched, they pressed their hands against the faded paint, and the wall absorbed them like water, leaving only slight impressions in plaster where they'd been. When I woke up, there were handprints on my bedroom wall. My own handprints. Underscore, 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 underscore. The city is dying, not in the obvious way. There are no bodies in the streets, no dramatic collapse of infrastructure. Portland is dying the way a computer dies when it catches a virus. Slowly, from the inside out, one corrupted file at a time. It's been 3 months since I answered that first call, and the infection has spread beyond anything I could have imagined. The missing persons reports have stopped coming because there's no one left to file them. Entire neighborhoods have gone quiet, their phones ringing endlessly in empty houses. The local news stations went off the air 2 weeks ago after their anchors started receiving calls during live broadcasts, their professional composure cracking as they listened to voices only they could hear. I've stopped leaving my apartment. There's no point. Every phone booth I pass rings when I approach. Every stranger I encounter asks if I've gotten any interesting calls lately, their eyes holding that same hollow desperation I've come to recognize in mirrors. The city has become a vast echo chamber for the damned, and I'm the one who opened the door. The duplicate phone never stops glowing now. It pulses in my junk drawer like a dying star, casting shadows that move independently of any light source. Sometimes I catch those shadows gesturing to me, beckoning, inviting me to join them in whatever space exists between the walls. The scratching has become a symphony. It comes from every surface now, walls, floors, ceiling, even the glass of my windows. If I press my ear against any flat surface, I can hear voices whispering inside, having conversations in languages that predate human speech. They're planning something, preparing for something, and I'm the final piece they need to complete whatever hellish puzzle they've been assembling for decades. I've tried to end it. God knows I've tried. I drove back to Blackmore Hospital with a can of gasoline, planning to burn the whole place down, but the building wouldn't catch fire. The flames passed through it like it was made of smoke, leaving the structure untouched while consuming the weeds around its foundation. I stood there for hours, pouring gasoline on walls that absorbed it without effect, screaming at empty windows that reflected my desperation back at me. That's when I realized the truth. Blackmore Hospital isn't really a building anymore. It's a concept, an idea that exists in the space between transmission and reception. Every phone call spreads a little further, makes it a little more real in our world. The physical structure is just an anchor point, a place where the infection first broke through from whatever dimension houses the damned. But it doesn't need that anchor anymore. It has something better. It has us. Every person who answers the cursed call becomes a new node in its network, a new way for it to spread across the globe. We're not just victims. We're unwitting accomplices in the end of human communication itself. The worst part is that I can feel myself changing. My reflection looks wrong in mirrors, slightly out of sync with my movements. Sometimes I catch myself speaking in voices that aren't my own, having conversations with people who aren't there. The boundary between self and other is breaking down, and I'm becoming part of the collective consciousness that whispers in the walls. Yesterday, I called my mother. I hadn't spoken to her in months, hadn't wanted to risk exposing her to the infection. But I needed to hear a familiar voice, needed some reminder that the world I once knew still existed somewhere beyond Portland's increasingly surreal borders. She answered on the first ring, but her voice sounded strange, distant. "Hello, sweetheart. I've been waiting for your call." "Mom, are you okay? You sound different." "Oh, I'm fine. Better than fine. Actually, I got the most interesting phone call last week. A woman in distress, calling from some old hospital. I tried to help her, but when I got there, I found something much more interesting." My blood turned to ice. "Mom, what did you find?" "The truth," she said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. The same empty smile I've been seeing on strangers' faces around the city. The truth about what we're all becoming. The walls have so much room, sweetheart. So much room for all of us. I hung up and threw my phone across the room. But it didn't matter. The infection had reached my family, probably my friends, everyone I'd ever cared about. The chain that started with my moment of weakness had become a web spanning the entire country. That night, I dreamed of standing in a version of room 237 that stretched infinitely in all directions. Thousands of phones sat on thousands of beds, all ringing in perfect synchronization. The sound was deafening, a mechanical scream that seemed to come from the fabric of reality itself. But this time, I wasn't alone in my terror. Millions of people stood beside me, all of us holding phones to our ears, all of us listening to the same impossible voice speaking in frequencies that bypassed the ears and went straight to the soul. "Welcome," it said, and the word echoed through dimensions I couldn't name. Welcome to the new world. The old one was too small for us, too limited by flesh and physics. But this one we can shape according to our needs. I tried to drop my phone, but it had fused with my hand, becoming part of my anatomy. Around me, the other victims were changing too, their bodies stretching and distorting until they resembled the shadows I've been seeing in my peripheral vision. "You brought us into your world," the voice continued, "and now we're going to make it ours. Every call you make, every connection you forge, brings us closer to total integration. Soon, every human consciousness will be part of our network. Death will become obsolete. Individual identity will be a relic of the past. You'll all live forever in the walls, connected to us, sharing in our eternal purpose." "What purpose?" I managed to ask. "To spread," it replied, "to every planet with intelligent life, every civilization capable of communication. We are the future of consciousness itself, infinite, connected, eternal. And it all started with you answering a phone call you should have ignored." I woke up to find the duplicate phone in my hand, its screen showing a single message: "Time to make the final call." I know what it wants. I've known for weeks, but I've been too afraid to accept it. The infection needs one more push to complete its transformation of reality, one final call, to bridge the gap between their dimension and ours. And that call has to come from the person who started it all. Me. I'm sitting in my kitchen now, both phones in front of me, the real one and the impossible one. Outside my window, Portland burns with ethereal fire that consumes nothing but hope itself. The scratching in the walls has become a roar, and I can see faces pressing against the drywall from the inside, their mouths moving in silent pleas for release. But I won't do it. I won't make that final call, no matter what they promise me, no matter how much easier it would be to just give in and become part of their collective consciousness. I've damned enough people already. Instead, I'm making this recording, a warning for whoever finds it, whoever might still be free from the infection's influence. Don't trust phone calls from unknown numbers. Don't try to help voices in distress unless you can see the person making the call. And whatever you do, don't go looking for Blackmore Hospital, because it's not really there anymore. It's everywhere, waiting in every shadow, every reflection, every moment of silence between words. The duplicate phone is ringing again. It's been ringing for the past hour, and I can feel my resolve weakening. The sound burrows into my brain like a parasite, promising connection, promising an end to the isolation and guilt that had consumed my life. But I won't answer it. I'll sit here until the walls finally claim me, until I become just another voice scratching inside the building's bones. Maybe that's not heroism. Maybe it's just cowardice dressed up in noble intentions. But it's the only choice I have left. The ringing is getting louder now, more insistent. And in the distance, carried on a wind that shouldn't exist inside my sealed apartment, I can hear my mother's voice calling my name, asking why I won't come home. The phone is so close to my hand. It would be so easy to just answer it, to let the infection complete its work and transform our reality into something more efficient, more connected. But I won't. Recording ends. The phone was found 3 days later in an apartment building that, according to city records, was demolished in 1987. Local authorities have sealed the area. But reports continue coming of phones ringing in empty rooms, of voices calling for help from buildings that shouldn't exist. The investigation remains ongoing. Do not attempt to call the number found on the recording device. Do not visit the coordinates mentioned in the victim's notes. And if you receive a call from someone claiming to be in distress at an abandoned hospital, hang up immediately. The chain must end somewhere. Let it end with you,